We have big news about WWDC 2026. Apple has revealed several new iOS 27 features, bad news about the foldable iPhone, a crazy AirTag story, and so much more, all in today's episode of Apple Weekly. Okay, so let's start by talking about my favorite Apple event of the year because we are just weeks away from it, and that is WWDC 2026, or the Worldwide Developers Conference 2026, which is where Apple shows off the latest new software, which this year it will be iOS 27, iPadOS 27, macOS 27, and so on. So the big news this week is that we got the official schedule from Apple, but most importantly, Apple sent out media invites for WWDC, and well, for the first time ever, I got invited to WWDC 2026. I cannot even believe that I'm saying that, because if you guys watched my recent video, a recent Apple Weekly video I did here on the channel, I straight up said that I'm not going to be going, so I will be able to stream, the event for you guys here from home. But I was very shocked when I got the email from Apple inviting me out to go to WWDC 2026 in person. So I just want to take a moment to just thank you guys for the support. I'd be nothing without you guys watching my videos, and supporting me and keeping me going on this. So I just want to really thank you guys a lot, because this is amazing. It's a dream come true for me. I've wanted to go to WWDC since I was a kid, and it's just a full circle moment for me, and I could not be more grateful and just lucky to be in this position. So with that being said, of course, I will not be streaming WWDC here on the channel. That's been an annual tradition for like over 10 years now. I always live stream the event, give you guys my reaction. It's always one of the most anticipated, the biggest streams here on my channel every single year. But this year, unfortunately, and I hope you guys can understand why, I will not be having that stream here on the channel. So I'll try to do something while I'm there. I'm not really sure on the legality of streaming it, in person, but we'll see. We'll make something happen. Of course, I will have my iOS 27 What's New video coming out for the first beta a little bit later than usual, because I will be out there, but that means I will be able to find more new features for you guys as well. And that leads us right into the next thing I want to talk about, which is iOS 27, because this week Apple also unveiled some brand new iOS 27 features. They officially announced them, and we also got several new leak updates from Bloomberg's Mark Gurman for what's coming in the software. So let's start with those leaked features, and then we'll get into the official features from Apple. So first up, Gurman said that the Siri application will have a feature that auto-deletes chats after a set time. So he said this: there's also a particularly notable feature that borrows from the Messages app, and that is auto-deleting chats. So he says in the settings panel for the Siri app, users will be able to choose to keep conversations for 30 days, 1 year, or forever. Users will also be able to decide whether the Siri app opens to a grid of prior conversations or a new chat at each app launch. Competing chatbots typically offer temporary or incognito chat modes that prevent conversations from being stored or used for model training. Apple's position is that such protections should be built into the system itself rather than treated as an optional setting users have to manually enable. And this is something I think is super smart on Apple's end. It actually gives them a little bit of a leg up. It's not a huge feature or change by any means, but it is a small little leg up that they have over like ChatGPT or Gemini, which I currently use. Those incognito or those, private windows of private chats. I use those all the time, but it's gonna be nice to have them auto delete here in Apple's version. There's also a Genmoji upgrade coming. So he says for iOS 27 and iPadOS 27, Apple is planning a small change that it seemingly hopes will increase adoption of the feature, and that is suggested Genmojis. Suggested Genmoji are created from your photos and your commonly typed phrases, reads a new toggle in the keyboard settings of iOS 27. The capability will be optional in the next iPhone and iPad software updates. He also says that the new Siri is going to be in beta. So he says Apple's revamped Siri may launch as a beta test even after 2 years of delays. Test versions of iOS 27 within Apple use this label for the new Siri and include a toggle to leave the Siri beta. We also have AI-generated wallpapers. So in a separate report, Gurman says Apple is preparing a feature that lets users generate wallpapers, the background images on a device's screen, with AI. The wallpaper picker includes a new option powered by the Image Playground app for creating custom lock screen and home screen backgrounds. Hopefully you guys will still support my custom, professionally created wallpapers that I sell here on the channel though. Anyways, he also says that Apple is preparing an upgraded version of Shortcuts. The version now in testing lets users create shortcuts simply by describing what they want them to do. Currently, users need to manually build shortcuts within the app or download them from Apple's gallery. In the updated app for iOS 27, users are presented with a prompt asking what do you want your shortcut to do, along with a text field to describe the request. The system then automatically builds and installs the shortcuts on the device. That right there, I think, is going to be a much bigger deal than people think, because right now, shortcuts is an amazing application. I love the application, but 99% of people out there do not use it and do not even want to learn how to use it because it's so complicated. But if you could do it with just a voice prompt or a text prompt, that is a big deal. I think a lot more people are going to start to use shortcuts once they realize that they can do it without getting super technical and it takes forever to build a shortcut. There's also going to be an upgrade to writing tools. So he says, as a part of the expanded AI-powered writing tools, that Apple is planning a grammar checker that works similarly to Grammarly's software. The system appears in a translucent menu that slides up from the bottom of the screen and displays original text alongside suggested revisions. Users can accept individual suggestions, approve all changes, or ignore them altogether. There are also controls to pause grammar checking and navigate between flagged sections of text. Apple is also testing a new Write with Siri toggle at the top of the keyboard, as well as a Help Me Write option that appears when users activate Siri while working in a text field. So all of those sound pretty awesome, and I cannot wait to see what Apple does with Apple Intelligence in iOS 27. And Apple actually just announced this week some new accessibility features that are coming with iOS 27 that are also powered by the upgraded Apple Intelligence in iOS 27. So here's what they showed off. There's quite a few of them. So first off, we have VoiceOver Image Explorer. So this uses AI to produce more detailed descriptions of images throughout the system, including photographs, scanned bills, and personal records. And it says users can also press the action button on the iPhone to ask questions about what the camera viewfinder sees, with follow-up questions supported in natural language. Magnifier brings AI-powered visual descriptions to its high-contrast interface for users with low vision, also accessible via the action button with support for spoken commands like zoom in or turn on flashlight. Voice control gains natural language input so users can describe on-screen elements conversationally, such as tap the guide about best restaurants or tap the purple folder, rather than memorizing exact label names or numbers. Accessibility Reader gets support for more complex document layouts, including scientific articles with multiple columns, images, and tables, plus on-demand summaries and built-in translation that retains a user's custom font, color, and formatting preferences. We have generated subtitles, which uses on-device speech recognition to automatically transcribe spoken audio and uncaptioned video content, including clips recorded on iPhone, received from friends and family, or streamed online across iPhone and all other Apple devices. And this one's pretty crazy. We also have power wheelchair control for Apple Vision Pro. This uses the headset's precision eye tracking system as an alternative input method for users who cannot operate a joystick. This one just seems absolutely insane, and it's pretty cool that that exists. So there's also a number of small additions that are going to be added to iOS 27, so like some existing features that are going to get better, such as vehicle motion cues now coming to the Vision Pro and Vision OS. Apple Vision Pro is going to support face gestures, and then you can see some other improvements for the hearing aids, name recognition, larger text, Sony access control, FaceTime, and touch accommodations. So as always, if you are an accessibility user, there are a ton of new features and changes coming in iOS 27 to help make your life easier. Apple always does accessibility right, and they're always focused on accessibility, which I think is super cool to just be so inclusive. Okay, so now let's switch gears and talk about the upcoming iPhone Fold or the iPhone Ultra, whatever it ends up being called, because we have some pretty bad news because it could possibly be getting delayed now. So Instant Digital and Weibo said this: iPhone Fold hinge is consistently failing to meet Apple's quality control standards under conditions of prolonged high-frequency opening and closing. He said this: the iPhone Fold or Ultra foldable has indeed encountered setbacks in its recent trial production phase. Regarding screen creases, Apple has essentially acknowledged the issue, and current test results have indeed demonstrated the ability to maintain a visually crease-free state over the long term. Now, the core card point is the hinge, and the reliability after long-term high-frequency opening and closing has never reached Apple's QC pass line. We must resolve this mechanical loss issue with absolute perfection. Otherwise, the schedule will have to be dragged along by sheer force for now. So basically they're saying that this mechanical hinge issue going on needs to be completely perfected before they can go into mass production, which if they don't get it perfect, it will be delayed. So hopefully that's not the case, but as of right now, it's looking like there is one hang up that could potentially delay it. Now, I still still think we're going to see it in 2026, don't get me wrong, but it might just be later on in the year if they cannot get past this hurdle. So to be continued on that. Okay, so now we have to talk about the new liquid metal material that Apple is developing that we're going to see for the first time on this iPhone Ultra or iPhone Fold, and it could be the future of what Apple decides to use for the frame of their iPhones. So according to Instant Digital on Weibo, he said inside Apple, they know better than anyone that the aluminum alloy used in the iPhone 17 Pro is a compromise. Once they've identified a material that strikes the right balance between weight and thermal performance, they'll switch to it. There are currently two they're deciding between. Number one is liquid metal. And he says it's very difficult to realize large-scale mass production of Apple level. However, as long as the iPhone folding screen is used, the process will run through, then the cost will come down, and finally the Digital Pro Series will have a chance to adopt. And then there's titanium. And he said, just a moment ago, I was telling you all that Apple has always taken great pride in using titanium in its phones. The decision to stick with aluminum on the iPhone 17 Pro was purely a reluctant compromise. This is true, which is why Apple has yet to abandon titanium. It appears to be developing an improved version aimed at addressing the poor thermal conductivity of the original titanium alloy, while further reducing the weight without increasing the volume. I'm not entirely sure yet, but once the new formula is finalized, I believe Apple will return to using titanium. And remember, the rumors right now are that Apple is planning to use titanium and this new liquid metal, a kind of combination of both of them for the upcoming iPhone Ultra or iPhone Fold. Now let's go ahead a little bit further into next year, because next year is going to be a big deal for the iPhone as well, because we're going to have the 20th anniversary iPhone, and we're hearing some pretty interesting news now that next year's iPhone 19 Pro might have a quad curved display. So Digital Chat Station said this: supply chain rumors suggest the iPhone at the 2027 event will feature a near quad curved display design. And the iPhone 19 Pro is currently at the evaluation stage, so it's early on, but it is said to have a hole punch design with the Face ID hidden under the panel, and of course the display is going to curve over all four edges. It's going to be kind of like an infinity pool for that display. We've heard this now from several sources, so we're not entirely sure if it's going to be the 19 Pro or like some crazy 20th anniversary phone, but it's going to have apparently that amazing design that kind of just goes over the entire screen. It kind of looks like it's like leaking off of it. So that'll be cool, and we're hearing this again. This is like the fourth or fifth time we've heard this same rumor, so it is looking like we're going to get something pretty crazy in terms of display tech next year with either the Pro models, or maybe there's going to be a higher end like Ultra model if this year's foldable is not called the Ultra. So kind of confusing, but we do know that some crazy display tech is coming next year for the iPhone. Now here's something crazy that I had a hard time believing has not happened before, but Apple in Q1 of 2026 was the top selling smartphone globally. So this comes from Counterpoint Research, and they showed that Apple finished as the world's #1 smartphone by shipments in Q1 of 2026 at 21%. And what's crazy is that they had a 9% increase year over year in shipments, where the overall market had a -3% decrease. So yeah, it's pretty crazy that this is the first time in Apple's history that they've led, the global market in smartphone sales for Q1 of any quarter in the past. And you might be wondering, why now? Well, it's because the iPhone 17 was so good. Like, it was touted by everybody, and also Tim Cook even went on to say that it was their best selling, smartphone to date, like the 17 series. So I think that plays a role, and also of course the increased sales in China are also a big reason why it was #1 for the first time in Q1. So if you're wondering about the others, second place was Samsung, Xiaomi was third, and Oppo was fourth. Now we should also talk about the new Google AI smart glasses that were announced this week. So they're coming in the fall, and these do have support for the iPhone. So Google basically teamed up with Samsung for its first ever intelligent eyewear product, and it's going to be like these AI audio glasses. So they have cameras, speakers, microphones, all of that, but there's no display in the lenses. So very similar to the other smart glasses we've seen on the market before. But what's cool is that these are going to run Android XR, and it's also going to have support for Gemini. So you're going to have Gemini basically integrated throughout the glasses. So kind of like how Meta has Hey Meta, this is going to have Gemini, which is of course much better than what Meta has. So it's going to be a cool little stopgap before Apple's come out later this year or next year. And this is compatible, by the way, with the iPhone, like I said, and also Android devices, which is pretty cool. Okay, so let's switch over to our iPhone now. And first off, you can see that Fortnite is back in the App Store. I know you probably are tired of hearing this story. We've talked about this for years now, but Fortnite is back in the App Store everywhere except for Australia. So Epic Games announced announced this week, and they're saying that the company declared it's entering the final battle of its long-running legal dispute with Apple. So we're not sure if it's ever going to leave the Apple Store again, the App Store again or what, but as of right now, it's back in there. So if you are a Fortnite fan, go ahead and download it if you do not already have it on your device. The Apple Sports app got a big update this week, so version 4.0 is now here, and this is a big one because first off, it's now available in more than 90 additional countries, so it's now available pretty much everywhere, and we also have some big updates to the World Cup 2026. You have the tournament bracket view, you have visual formations, and one tap to Apple News. So if I go into the search right here, you can see we have FIFA World Cup 2026 up there in the top left. If you tap on that, you get all of your information here, and you can see we have the little bracket view here as well. We can kind of scroll and see all of the matches right there, and you can tap on these to get more info. So really cool. If you are into FIFA, if you are into soccer or football, you can go in here and check that out. Now, speaking of sports, Apple also announced something pretty big that's going to be happening this week, and that is the fact that Apple is going to broadcast the first major professional live sporting event shot entirely on an iPhone 17 Pro. So yes, today's MLS match between the LA Galaxy and Houston Dynamo FC will be captured entirely with the iPhone 17 Pro. So they said this: iPhone 17 Pro will capture live footage throughout the match, including team warm-ups of the pitch, player introductions, in-net goal angles, and the atmosphere inside the stadium. With cameras positioned throughout the venue, the broadcast will deliver the pristine video quality fans expect, alongside dynamic new perspectives that bring viewers closer to the action, made possible by the small form factor of the iPhone. So that is insane that we're going to be seeing our first ever live sports event shot with iPhones. That's amazing. Now, as far as iOS 26.5 goes, I really don't have too much to say here, so I have been using the software, of course, on my main device here and on my test device. So really no complaints so far. We still don't have any ads in the Maps application just yet. I've had people ask me still about that. Those are not coming until the summer, so don't worry about that. But as far as everything else goes on 26.5, it's very similar to what we saw in 26.4 and 26.4.1 in terms of battery life, performance, all of that. And of course the features, the changes are nothing really too crazy. But of course we do have a lot of the security patches in here, which is always a reason to go ahead and update your device. If you're still not on, 26.5, you should absolutely be there. And of course the new Pride wallpapers are pretty cool as well. Now we did also see this week that Apple is going to be releasing a 26.5.1. So this came from the Mac Rumors Analytics, their visitor logs. It shows devices running 26.5.1, which means that we should be seeing that software come out relatively soon, within the next couple of weeks, I would say. Now, of course, since that is a double point update, a 0.5.1, do not expect anything major in that update. That is going to be strictly for bug fixes and security patches. So don't expect any new features or changes in that. Of course, all of those are going to be coming in iOS 27 at this point, which, by the way, let's go ahead and talk about that because we're getting very close. Again, June 8th is WWDC 2026, and that is where we're going to see iOS 27 get unveiled and the first beta go out for developers. So we are just about 2 weeks away from that. So after the 25th, we'll have June 1st and then June 8th. So pretty much 2 weeks from next Monday is when we will see iOS 27. It's insane how quickly that has approached. And then finally, just as tradition, we have another crazy AirTag story, except for this time, it's not necessarily an AirTag, it's AirPods, but it's the same concept. It's tracking with the Find My application. And this time it happened in Wisconsin. So a couple was hit with one of the craziest tracking stories we've seen yet. So a man named Tion was driving his gold Volkswagen when he got a blowout tire, forcing him to leave the car parked on the side of the road while he went to grab a spare tire. But when he came back just a few hours later, the car was gone. At first, he thought that maybe it just got towed, so he started calling every tow yard and city impound that he could think of, but nobody had any record of the vehicle at all. And that's exactly when he remembered something important. His AirPods were still inside of the car, so he opened up the Find My application, and sure enough, he saw that the AirPods were still fully charged and actively pinging at a location, and the location shocked him because they were showing it was at a scrapyard less than a mile away from where the car disappeared. So Tion and his wife Gina rushed over there, hoping that maybe the car was just sitting in the lot waiting to be processed, but instead, they found it completely crushed. The windows were gone, the body panels were stripped off, and the entire Volkswagen was flattened and stacked in a pile of destroyed cars. And the craziest part is that the car was only missing for just a few hours. So Tion said that seeing it like that made him want to completely break down because he worked hard for the car and hadn't even owned it for very long. So they did call the police and they began an investigation, and eventually they learned that the scrapyard actually accepted the car legally, at least according to Wisconsin requirements. The person who brought the stolen Volkswagen in had shown a supposed bill of sale and an ID, which was apparently enough for the scrapyard to destroy the vehicle. But Gina could not believe it, saying that anybody could just print out a fake bill of sale from home. But somehow it gets even worse, because police said that the scrapyard did check whether the car was reported stolen before crushing it, but because Tion was still busy calling tow yards trying to locate the vehicle, the stolen car report had not officially gone through just yet, so the system completely failed them. So while searching through what was left of the crushed Volkswagen, police said that Tion actually discovered an ID inside the vehicle belonging to the person investigators believe stole the car in the first place. And the police reportedly told the couple that they believed the whole thing was wrongfully done and that they planned on tracking the suspect down. But still, Tion and Gina say they're probably never going to get reimbursed for their loss. But it's pretty crazy because without the AirPods and the Find My application there, they may have just never even known where this car went. It may have just completely disappeared from the face of the earth and they would have never heard anything about it. But still, pretty unfortunate situation. That's a very unique situation I've never heard of before. So that's a new one here on the channel. And again, always a good reason to have AirPods, AirTags, something in your car to track it. Anyways, guys, that is it for this week's episode of Apple Weekly. I want to once again thank you guys so much for the support. I cannot believe I'm going to be attending my first ever WWDC in June. So again, thank you so much for that. And I will be bringing you guys some great coverage there live from the event on my story on Instagram. So if you're not following me on Instagram, make sure to go over there and follow me. I'm just at Brandon Butch. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this episode as always. If you did, let me know with a comment down below, and I will see you guys very soon.